Have you ever noticed how people's behavior shifts the moment they realize they can't control you? At first, they might act confused, then frustrated. But they don't just walk away, they change tactics. Suddenly, the smiles fade, and the pressure begins. They start with guilt tripping, twisting your words and spreading whispers behind your back. It's subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. But make no mistake, these are psychological traps designed to pull you back under their influence. It's not about whether you've done something wrong, it's about power. Stoic philosophy teaches that true strength isn't about controlling others, it's about refusing to be controlled. But here's the real question: are you truly free? Or are you still unknowingly reacting to their mind games? Because if you don't recognize what's happening, you'll fall right into their hands. Stay with me until the end, because the final trick they use is the most dangerous of all. And trust me, once you learn it, you'll never see people the same way again. But first, let me tell you a story that will make this lesson impossible to forget. Adam was different. He didn't follow the herd. He lived on his own terms, made his own decisions, and never let people push him around. At work, his boss couldn't intimidate him. In friendships, he didn't fall for emotional blackmail. Even in his own family, he set firm boundaries. You'd think this would earn him respect. And at first, it did. People admired his confidence. They said they wished they could be like him. But then, things changed. The same friends who praised him started whispering behind his back. They called him selfish. His co-workers, once friendly, started spreading rumors. Even family members who once relied on him began accusing him of being distant and cold. Adam was confused. Why was his independence making people uncomfortable? Frustrated, he visited an old mentor, Mr. Carter, a retired businessman known for his wisdom. "Why is it," Adam asked, "that the moment I refuse to be controlled, people turn against me?" Mr. Carter smiled and led him outside to his backyard, where two horses stood, one tied to a post, the other roaming freely. "Watch," he said. He stepped toward the tied horse. It stayed still, unbothered. Then he moved toward the free one. The moment he got close, the horse stepped back, alert. "Do you see?" Mr. Carter said. "When people can tie you down, they feel secure. But when you're free, they grow uneasy, because they can't predict or control you." Adam frowned. "So what do they do?" Mr. Carter sighed. "They don't try to free you. They try to break you. They'll call you difficult, selfish, arrogant. They'll twist your independence into something negative. Not because you're wrong, but because your freedom reminds them of their own chains." That night, Adam understood. People weren't turning against him because he was bad. They were turning against him because they couldn't control him. So he stopped explaining himself. He stopped seeking approval. He stopped letting guilt make his choices. And in that silence, something powerful happened. The manipulators, they left. The weak-minded, they faded away. And the truly strong, they stayed. Because real strength recognizes strength. Now that you know why people act this way when they can't control you, it's time to see their tactics before they even begin. I'm about to break down their exact strategies, the psychological tricks they use to manipulate you. And the last one? It's the most dangerous of them all. So keep watching, because you need to be ready. If you're ready to be truly unshakable, comment below, "I am unshakable." Say it. Own it. Let them know they can't break you. If this message resonates with you, show your support. Like this video to spread the message. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Drop a comment. Let me know if you've ever experienced this in your own life. And now, let's get into the first lesson. Because once you learn this, you will never be manipulated again. 1. When they can't control you, they pull the strings instead. When people realize they can't control you, they don't just give up. They switch tactics. Direct control doesn't work anymore, so they resort to something more insidious: manipulation. It's like a puppeteer who suddenly finds the strings cut. Instead of walking away, they scramble to tie them back together in a way you won't notice. Some people thrive on control. They want to dictate your actions, influence your choices, and shape your behavior to fit their needs. But when they come across someone independent, someone who won't bend easily, they don't back down. They adapt. They stop demanding and start deceiving. Instead of pushing you, they pull at your emotions, making you feel guilty, obligated, or pressured into compliance. The goal isn't respect, it's influence. And influence, when used in the wrong hands, is just another form of control. Ever had someone say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me"? That's not concern, it's guilt tripping. Or maybe you've heard, "You're so amazing at this. I don't know what I'd do without you." That sounds like a compliment, but it's often flattery meant to soften you up before a request. And if those don't work, they create urgency. "If you don't help me now, I don't know what I'll do." Or they play the victim. Anything to make you feel responsible for their emotions. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your armor. Lao Tzu once said, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." That's the secret. True strength isn't about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. Manipulators thrive on emotional reactions: guilt, doubt, fear. The moment you recognize their tactics and refuse to engage, you take away their power. Think of manipulation as a game of chess. Every move they make is designed to force a reaction out of you. They set traps, hoping you'll panic and play right into their hands. But what happens if you don't react? What if you don't move according to their strategy? They lose. The best way to defeat manipulation isn't to fight. It's to stop playing the game altogether. I once dealt with someone who had a way of twisting every situation in their favor. One day, they asked for a favor, something I wasn't comfortable doing. I politely declined. Instead of accepting my answer, they sighed and said, "Wow, I thought we were closer than that." And in that moment, I felt it. That creeping guilt, that urge to explain myself. But then I paused. Instead of defending my decision, I simply smiled and said, "I know what you're doing." That single sentence changed everything. Their face shifted. They stammered, tried to laugh it off, but I didn't engage. That was the last time they tried to manipulate me. And that's the thing. Once you see manipulation for what it is, it loses its grip on you. But here's what you might be wondering. What if they get upset? What if they make me feel like I'm being rude? What if they make me feel guilty for saying no? That's the trick. They want you to feel that way. The truth is, you are not responsible for how someone else reacts to your boundaries. You don't owe an explanation for your choices. You don't have to defend yourself when you say no. Next time someone tries to manipulate you, recognize the game. If they make you feel guilty, pressured, or obligated, ask yourself, is this a genuine request, or is this manipulation? Stay calm, stay firm. The more neutral your response, the less control they have over you. When they try to draw you into their emotional web, refuse to play. Say no and move on. Because at the end of the day, manipulation only works when you react to it. The moment you stop explaining, stop engaging, and stop feeling responsible for their emotions, they lose control. Master yourself. Hold your ground. And remember, your choices are yours alone. 2. When they can't control you, they try to control your story. Some people will do anything to keep power over you. And when they realize they can't manipulate you directly, they turn to something even lower. They spread lies. Instead of confronting you, they create false stories, twist the truth, and try to turn others against you. Why? Because they can't control your actions, so they try to control how others see you. It's never about truth. It's about power. False narratives are the weapon of the weak. When people don't have facts on their side, they resort to gossip, exaggerations, and outright lies. They want you to react, to get defensive, to panic, because the moment you do, they win. They've dragged you into their game. But here's the truth. Real power lies in not reacting. Think of it like mudslinging. Imagine someone throwing mud at you. If you try to fight back, you'll only get dirtier. The more you struggle, the messier you become. But if you stand still, let the mud dry, and simply dust yourself off, you walk away clean. That's how false rumors work. The more you fight them, the more you spread the mess. But if you stand firm, the lies lose their power. Eventually, they crumble under their own weight. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are unaffected by what is said, you have already won." Think about that. The moment you stop caring about what others say, you strip their power away. Because truth doesn't beg for attention, it stands on its own. It doesn't need constant defense, it speaks for itself. But here's what you might be asking. What if their lies ruin my reputation? What if people believe them? What if staying silent makes me look guilty? That's the fear they want you to have. They want you to be desperate to clear your name. But desperation fuels their fire. When you chase down every rumor, you make it look like there's something to cover up. Silence, on the other hand, speaks louder than any defense. When you refuse to engage, people start questioning the source of the lies instead of questioning you. I remember a time when someone deliberately spread false rumors about me. At first, my instinct was to fight back, to correct every lie before it spread too far. But then, I stopped. Instead of reacting, I focused on being exactly who I was. I let my actions prove the truth. And you know what happened? The lies lost their impact. The more I ignored them, the more people started seeing the real story for themselves. And the person who spread them, eventually, they exposed themselves. Because lies have a short lifespan, but the truth lasts forever. The people who spread lies about you are revealing more about themselves than they are about you. Their need to tear you down shows their own insecurity, their own fear of losing power. Strong people don't waste time fabricating stories about others. Only the weak do that. And when you understand this, you realize something important. You don't need to fight battles that aren't yours. Let the insecure whisper. Let the jealous spread their poison. Let the manipulators twist words in the dark. None of it can touch you unless you let it. So what do? You don't engage. The moment you argue, you give their lies power. You let your character do the talking because, over time, truth will always reveal itself. And most importantly, you remember that false words hold no weight unless you give them attention. Stand firm, stay silent, watch as the truth makes its way to the surface. Because in the end, those who rely on lies always lose. 3. When they can't control you, they play the helpless act. Some people will never admit they're wrong. When they realize they can't control you, they don't take responsibility for their actions. They flip the script. They paint themselves as the victim, twist reality, and gather sympathy, all while making you look like the villain. It's not about seeking justice. It's about avoiding accountability. Because if they can't control you directly, they'll control how others see you. This is one of the oldest manipulation tricks in the book. Instead of owning their mistakes, they exaggerate, distort the facts, and act helpless. They want people to see them as innocent, misunderstood, even wounded. And the moment you try to explain yourself, you fall into their trap. Now suddenly, you look like the aggressor. They sit back, soaking in sympathy, while you scramble to defend your reputation. It's like walking onto a stage where they've already written the script. You're cast as the villain before you even speak. Imagine someone putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, their tears flowing, their voice shaking as they tell their version of events. If you step onto that stage and start arguing, you've already lost. You become part of their act. But if you refuse to engage, something interesting happens. The audience starts questioning the performance. People who fake victimhood rely on reactions. If you don't give them one, their story starts to fall apart. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest weapon. Epictetus once said, "A wise man does not allow others to dictate his emotions." That's the key. Emotional control. The moment you let their performance affect you, they win. If you get angry, if you try to prove yourself, if you chase down every lie, you give them power. But if you stay calm, detached, and let time reveal the truth, you take away their advantage. You might be wondering, but what if people believe them? What if my reputation is ruined? That's exactly what they want you to worry about. They want you to feel desperate to clear your name. But here's the truth. Real character always outlasts fake stories. Lies have an expiration date. They need constant fuel to survive. But the truth? It stands on its own. If you refuse to play into their drama, the mask eventually slips. I remember dealing with someone who always played the victim whenever they were confronted. They would cross boundaries, manipulate situations, and when finally called out, they wouldn't apologize. Instead, they'd act shocked, hurt, betrayed, and suddenly, I was the bad guy. At first, I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to prove my side. But then I stopped. I let my actions speak. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't play their game. And you know what happened? People started seeing the truth on their own. Because no matter how much someone plays the victim, lies always unravel, and real character always shines through. But how do you deal with these people when they try to drag you into their performance? You don't engage. The moment you start arguing, you give their story credibility. You let their own actions expose them, because the more they lie, the more obvious it becomes. And most importantly, you protect your energy. You don't need to prove anything. The truth has a way of surfacing all on its own. At the end of the day, manipulators use victimhood as a weapon, but only if you give them an audience. The best response: stay calm, stay quiet, Let reality do the talking, because in the end, the truth always outlasts the performance. 4. When they can't control you, they try to cut you off. Some people can't stand the idea of you thinking for yourself. When they realize they can't control you, they don't confront you directly. They move in the shadows. They twist stories, plant doubts, and work behind the scenes to turn others against you. It's not an accident, it's a calculated move. Because if you have strong connections, if you have support, they can't manipulate you. So their goal is simple: isolate you, make you feel alone, and weaken your defenses. Isolation is a tool of the weak. The strong don't need to cut others off to maintain power. Only manipulators do that. They spread rumors, stir up conflict, and create divisions because they know that once you start questioning who you can trust, you'll become easier to control. They don't need to convince you directly. All they need to do is poison the well. The more alone you feel, the more likely you are to start doubting yourself. And that's exactly what they want. Think of it like a wolf pack hunting in the wild. Predators don't attack the group. They isolate a single target first. They create distance between the prey and its pack because they know a lone target is easier to take down. Manipulators work the same way. They don't strike when you're surrounded by strong allies. Instead, they whisper, create tension, plant seeds of mistrust. Their strategy is simple: pull you away from those who support you, so you're left vulnerable and easier to control. At this point, you might be wondering, what if people believe the lies? What if I lose important relationships? That's the fear they want you to have. They want you to panic, to chase after those who turn away, to explain yourself over and over. But here's the truth. Real connections don't fall apart because of someone else's lies. The people meant to stay in your life won't be so easily swayed. And those who believe the rumors? They were never truly on your side to begin with. Seneca once said, "Associate only with those who improve you. Avoid those who would pull you down." That's the key. The people who genuinely know you will see through the manipulation over time. The ones who don't, let them go. Not everyone deserves a place in your life. I once knew someone who slowly tried to turn people against me. It started small. Subtle comments, little doubts planted in casual conversations. I don't know if you can really trust them. Then came the exaggerations, the twisting of my words. At first I was frustrated. I wanted to confront them, to clear my name. But then I realized, the more I fought back, the more power I gave them. So instead, I focused on what actually mattered. I stayed consistent in my actions. I nurtured my real connections. I let my character speak louder than their lies. And guess what? Over time, the truth surfaced on its own. The ones who mattered stayed. The ones who believed the lies. They were never my people to begin with. So what do you do when someone tries to isolate you? You stay calm. The more you react, the more fuel you give them. You strengthen your real connections, because people who truly know you won't be fooled for long. And most importantly, you don't chase those who turn away. If someone is that easily swayed, let them go. At the end of the day, those who fear your independence will try to isolate you, but they can't break what's unshaken. Stay strong, stay connected, and remember, the truth always finds its way through the cracks of deception. 5. When they can't control you, they make you doubt yourself. Some people won't attack you directly. They won't argue. They won't fight. They'll do something more subtle, more dangerous. They'll challenge your confidence. They'll make off-handed comments, plant tiny seeds of doubt, and subtly undermine your decisions. Not because they care, not because they have better judgment, but because if they can make you question yourself, they can regain control over you. This isn't about constructive criticism. People who truly want to help you will offer insight, not manipulation. But those who seek control, they don't give advice. They give uncertainty. They ask questions that make you hesitate. They raise doubts that make you second-guess yourself. They want you to seek their validation, to become unsure about your own choices. Because the more uncertain you are, the easier you are to influence. Think of it like a bridge. Imagine you're walking across a solid bridge. You know it's strong, you trust it. But someone stands nearby, watching, shaking their head. Are you sure that bridge can hold you? What if it collapses? At first, you ignore them, but they keep talking. I've heard of bridges like this failing before. Now, even though the bridge is perfectly safe, you start hesitating. Not because the bridge is weak, but because they made you doubt it. That's exactly how confidence works. Your judgment is sound, but manipulators shake it on purpose. They don't need to break you, just making you hesitate is enough. And this is where Stoic wisdom becomes your armor. Epictetus once said, "A person's worth is not determined by external approval." True confidence doesn't come from everyone agreeing with you. It comes from trusting yourself. The moment you stop seeking validation, the moment you stand by your decisions without explaining yourself, you become unshakable. But here's what you might be asking. What if they're right? What if I actually am making a mistake? That's the trick. They want you to believe doubt means danger. But doubt is just noise. You've made decisions before. You've learned from experience. You've built your judgment over time. One person's skepticism doesn't erase that. Just because someone questions you doesn't mean you're wrong. I remember a time when someone constantly questioned my choices. Every time I made a decision, they'd raise an eyebrow. "Are you sure? That seems risky." At first, I explained myself. I justified my reasoning, tried to prove I was making the right call. But then I realized something. They weren't questioning me because they knew better. They were doing it to make me unsure. So one day, I stopped explaining. I simply said, "Yes, I'm sure." That was it. No justification, no debate. And you know what? They had nothing left to say. Because confidence doesn't need to argue, it just stands firm. So what do you do when someone tries to shake your confidence? You trust yourself. If you made a decision based on reason and experience, don't let someone's doubt derail you. You stop over-explaining. The more you justify yourself, the more they'll poke holes in your confidence. And most importantly, you remember that doubt is their tool, not your truth. At the end of the day, your confidence is your power. People will challenge it, test it, and try to weaken it. But only if you let them. Stand firm, trust yourself, and never let someone else's doubts become your own. 6. When they can't control you, they try to light your fuse. Some people don't care about reason. They don't care about fairness. When they realize they can't control you through logic or manipulation, they resort to a different tactic. They provoke you. They push your buttons, insult you, mock you, twist your words, all with one goal in mind, making you lose control. The moment you explode, they win. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book. They don't need to prove you wrong. All they need to do is make you react. Because once you snap, they get to play the victim. They'll turn to others and say, "See? I told you they were unreasonable." They'll act innocent while you look like the aggressor. It's not about the argument. It's about the setup. They're playing chess while you're playing checkers. They want you to lose your temper so they can claim the moral high ground. Think of it like a fire and the wind. Your emotions are the flame, and they are the wind. The more you react, the bigger the fire gets. But what happens when you stop feeding it? The fire dies out. That's why staying calm is your greatest weapon. If they can't make you explode, they have nothing left to use against you. You might be thinking, but what if they're spreading lies? What if they're disrespecting me? Shouldn't I defend myself? That's exactly what they want. They want you to feel so disrespected that you lash out so they can stand back and watch the show. But here's the truth. Your anger doesn't prove anything. It just gives them an excuse to paint you as the problem. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the key, refusing to react in the way they expect. When you stay calm in the face of provocation, you rob them of their power. You remain in control, and they walk away frustrated instead of victorious. I remember a time when someone tried to bait me into an argument. They threw insults, exaggerated things, even brought up past mistakes just to get a reaction. I could feel the anger building inside me. I had every reason to snap back. But instead of lashing out, I just smiled and said, "Interesting perspective." That's it. No explanation, no defense, just those two words. And you know what happened? They froze. They had no idea what to do because they were expecting an explosion. That was the moment I realized staying calm isn't weakness, it's power. So how do you deal with people like this? You recognize the game. If someone is deliberately trying to provoke you, pause and ask yourself, do they actually want a conversation, or do they just want me to react? You control your response. If you feel emotions rising, take a breath before speaking. And most importantly, you walk away from unnecessary battles. Not every argument is worth your energy. Some fights are won by simply refusing to engage. At the end of the day, your emotions belong to you. If someone tries to provoke you, stay calm, stay detached, and let them burn themselves out. Because in the end, the strongest person in the room is always the one who refuses to be controlled. 7. When they can't beat you, they try to become you. There's a certain kind of person who doesn't know how to carve their own path. Instead of competing, instead of creating, they imitate. At first, it seems like a coincidence. You make a bold move, and suddenly, they make a similar one. You introduce a new idea, and before you know it, they're presenting it as if it were their own. Then, it hits you. They're not just following the same road. They're trying to walk in your exact footsteps. Here's the truth. When someone starts copying you, it's not admiration, it's strategy. If they can't outshine you, they try to blend in with you. Instead of putting in the effort to build their own identity, they mirror yours, hoping that by imitating your moves, they can absorb some of your success. But there's one flaw in their plan. A copy is always one step behind the original. No matter how much they mimic, they will never be able to replace what makes you unique. Think of it like the difference between the sun and a shadow. A shadow moves when the light moves, but it can never generate its own glow. It follows, it shifts, it changes shape, but it's always dependent on something else. That's what copying is, a lifeless imitation of something real. No matter how much they try to act like you, they will never replicate the essence that sets you apart. And this is where Stoic wisdom becomes a guiding force. Seneca once said, "Character, not imitation, defines a person." Your value isn't in the things you do, it's in who you are. Someone can copy your words, your style, even your ideas, but they can never copy your mind. They can't steal your experience. They can't replicate your intuition, your authenticity, your essence. But you might be thinking, what if they fool people? What if they take credit for what I created? That's the frustration. They might get away with it for a while. They might even convince some people that they're the source. But time has a way of revealing the truth. Imitation can only go so far before it collapses under its own emptiness. Because the moment they have to stand on their own, when originality is required, they have nothing to offer. I remember someone who copied almost everything I did. If I made progress, they suddenly started moving in the same direction. If I took on a new challenge, they became interested in the exact same thing. At first, it bothered me. It felt like my work was being stolen. But then I realized something. The more they copied, the more obvious it became that they had nothing of their own. So one day, I switched things up. I changed my approach completely. And guess what? They had no idea what to do. Because when you're always following, you're never leading. That's when I learned the real lesson. Imitation is just proof that you're ahead. So how do you handle people like this? You stop worrying about them. The fact that they're copying you means they're already behind. You keep evolving because the more you grow, the harder it becomes for them to keep up. And most importantly, you remember that imitation isn't flattery, it's insecurity. They copy because they lack the confidence to be themselves. They follow because they don't trust their own instincts. At the end of the day, copies fade, but originality lasts forever. Keep being yourself. Keep leading. And let the imitators struggle to keep up. Because no matter how hard they try, no one can replace what makes you, you. The moment you refuse to be controlled, people reveal their true colors. Whether they manipulate, isolate, or imitate, their goal is always the same: power. But real strength comes from standing firm. Stay true to yourself. Keep growing, and never let anyone shake your confidence. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful insights.